Hey scrapbookers, I'm going to show you the Nutcracker border punch that Creative Memories just came out with this year. And I'll mention that this has already been moved to a limited quantity, which means it's not going to be available very much longer. Hopefully it's still out there to purchase by the time you're seeing this video, but it may not be. It's been very popular, it's selling out quickly. If you can't find it on the Creative Memories website, you might find one from your local advisor. So find someone in your area and they might still have some of these in stock, even if it has sold out on the website. If you'd like to order directly from me, you can do that on my Creative Memories website or contact me by email. And if you're here in the Northern Utah area, you can always come shop in person, either at my house in Kaysville or at one of my events. So to begin, I'm going to show you how to cut out this little cute single nutcracker and how to piece that together. But before we do that, I'm just going to punch out a few of the full borders with the nutcracker. So this is one of our border punches. It is the first one that Creative Memories has specifically designed for the vertical orientation. A lot of the border punches in the past have been generic, so you could do them vertically or horizontally. But a lot of them only work horizontally, and now this is the first one that really only works vertically. And the papers I'm using today are from a very old collection called Nordic Christmas. They're just some scrap papers I had on hand that I liked that were cute and Christmassy. And these have, most of them, kind of a bold pattern on the one side, and then more of a distressed kind of sweater-y pattern in a more monochromatic design on the other side. And this border punch, like all the others, has an indication on the front that shows you where the actual cutting starts and stops. So if you would like to start the very edge of your paper right at one of those lines, then you'll know that you're getting that punch right at the edge and you don't have to go back and forth. And I'm going to give you one tip about this punch. For most of the border punches, I would say you can go back and forth, right and left, it doesn't matter. For this one, because he has these little arms, those pieces can get stuck if you are sliding your paper to the right. So specifically for this punch, I recommend always sliding to the left so your little arms don't get caught and jam up your punch. So we're just punching out a whole section, and guess what? I punched that one wrong. It ended up not being a big deal, but I'll show you what happened in a second. So when you are punching, make sure that you line up your previous punch design to cover up all of the blue. So your paper comes all the way to the guard, kind of at the edge, and then your design should cover up the blue, so you're only seeing silver through. And I did not line that up very well on the first one, which means I'm not going to get all the way to the end. So you can see what happens is they're supposed to have some little feet that have, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch of height. And on my very first one, I chopped his feet off because I didn't slide it far enough. Not the end of the world, especially if you're not going to use this particular piece as a whole border. I'm going to show you that single, more detailed one that we're going to cut out today. But if you do want the whole border, make sure you're getting your design in the right place each time you punch. Which means lining your design up so you see the silver and not the blue each time. And with this punch, it's not 2 inches, it's a little taller than 2 inches for each one. So you get 5 of the nutcrackers on a 12-inch border strip. And then you don't have to start your borders right at the top or bottom of your page, of course. If you wanted just a partial one, maybe you're going to offset a couple of nutcrackers, like a series of borders, then maybe you want some to be lined up this way and some to maybe start halfway through the design. So when I say it, let me grab a different paper and I can show you what I mean by that. So I've been punching so that the top of my paper gets the top of his hat. But if I didn't want, like if I wanted to offset, so I had maybe 2 or 3 sets of these borders right next to each other, I might want to start right in the middle of the punch. And then still I would recommend going up to the left with your design and not sliding your punched papers to the right. It has the design on both sides, but just because of these arms, I think you run the risk of jamming your punch or tearing your punched strip pretty easily. So if you wanted to put maybe 3 of these strips of soldiers right next to each other, these nutcrackers, you might want to punch 1 or 2 of your pieces this way so you have the full punch, and then maybe the one next to it you would offset that way, so you're getting kind of half and half. And then this one is a little bit messed up, but just to show you kind of how that would line up. So then you've got your nice big series, like more of a thicker border made out of a bunch of the nutcrackers, which I think is really cute. And I hope you can see that, because my burgundy paper is pretty close to the color of my table, but this paper is so busy. Makes it really hard to see see anything that's going on. So yeah, the Nordic Christmas paper was a fun one. I just happen to still have a lot of it on hand. So when I'm doing some practice, and especially if it's Christmas stuff to try out, this is often the collection I pull out. Nordic Christmas, just try some stuff out. Everything looks like a sweater. So that sort of thing would be a really fun border, and obviously I would probably not put it on this paper because that's already pretty busy and you've got a somewhat intricate punch already. So just to show how that punch works, you could definitely layer that. You could definitely take the idea I'm going to show you here and dress up your individual nutcrackers for a border, leaving them all together. But what I'm going to do today is just punch out a single nutcracker and show you how to piece him together with to give him a little more detail. You can do this with any colors of papers. I picked that Nordic Christmas stuff because that's what I was playing with, and some kind of creamy, I don't know what color this is, not beige, but it could have been ivory, or could have been sand castle beige maybe. But this is a retired color that I just had a scrap of. And I chose that to be the base of my soldier. I just want to cut one out, so I don't even need to worry too much about where he's lined up. I'm just going to punch out one soldier. Then I'm going to trim that away from my paper. I'm going to do it a little higher than the top and a little lower than the bottom, and then I'll trim him to match the pieces we're putting together on him. From the scraps of this beige, I did keep one of the little punch outs that make up his, I don't know, the little accents on his jacket, whatever those are called, because one of those I used as his nose. So I'm actually just going to cut in half one of those little scraps, and all the rest of these are going to be trash. I don't need to keep any of those. I'm just going to scoot them off to the side. But so I don't lose that one, I'm going to just attach it to his nose right now. And I'm using the precision point adhesive for all of these. Just takes a tiny bit of that to attach these little bitty pieces. And if you have a lifter stick, that's great for little pieces, or tweezers help with this sort of stuff too. And I'm just putting his nose on right above the little mustache punch out. So there's that, and the base of our guy is kind of ready to go. I have a bunch of pieces already cut out from Nordic Christmas. And I think I'm going to mostly just use these. So these, I just punched out several and I've been playing with them. We're going to cut his jacket out of one piece. We're going to cut some pants, and then we've got some black to cut out a belt and some shoes. And we'll also take one of these pieces to be his hat. So for the jacket, I did the back side actually of this one for this first one I made. I think I'm gonna keep this part for his pants this time. I'm gonna cut it a little higher than it needs to be, just trim this off with my micro tip scissors and cut it off a little lower than I need. And then that gives me a good amount of space to attach the pants. I'll just do that now. And he could have the light blue pants and kind of be the opposite of the guy I already made, but I liked the dark. And I'm just layering this right on top of what we already have. So that's glued down for pants. The other pieces, the shoes, the jacket, and everything else will go on top of that. So I could use that or the opposite side from that piece we just cut, but I think I'm gonna do, don't want them too matchy-matchy, so not that one. But let's take this one from, oh, actually, I have a different one I wanted to use. I wanted to use this one. Comes from a different strip, but from the same paper. So I'm just gonna trim that, and you can round it off a little bit. I've seen people doing that where they kind of round it and bring his jacket up. On this one, I just cut it straight across. Whatever you like, whichever looks good to you. And we'll just make sure that looks pretty even. I don't have too much mess in the place where I've trimmed it. So this jacket will be just a tiny bit of a different shape than the first one. And then on the top, I played with it a little bit to see where is the best place to make it look like he's wearing a jacket and you can still see his face shape. I tried cutting it at some different places and decided I liked this best, where it kind of looks like he's got a little bit of a collar near his shoulders, but it comes down a little bit, so you still get that idea of like the round chin. So that's what I'll do again on this piece. And to do that, I am gonna cut up a tiny bit first on each side. And then I'll cut down and round it. But I don't want to go all the way to where that first little accent piece would be for his jacket, the little, what's probably usually metallic little fastener. And I'm just going to even it out so that it looks like that's a little jacket with a collar, but you can still see where his chin would be. So that's what I felt like looked best when I was cutting the jacket pieces, but you might find something else you like better as far as the shape of the jacket. Oh, and putting the glue down, but there is actually one other thing I need to do first, and that is leave his little hands exposed. And if you wanted to maybe put a different color here, maybe he's wearing gloves. But I just liked the way it looked to cut the hand part from this jacket piece so you can see his hands separate from the jacket. Just line it all up with the design underneath. And now there we've got this guy with his kind of more white and red burgundy jacket. So now we need a hat. We need some eyes, and there's a couple different ways to do the eyes. I'll show you. So with the first one I made, I used the little mustache punch outs for his eyes. I thought that was cute. You could do that in black. That's what I'm going to do here. Or you could do that in another color. Maybe your guy has blue eyes, maybe green, brown, whatever you want. I'm just going to punch one hole punch and grab those mustache pieces. So here are the little mustache scraps. Let's see if I've got a lighter piece I can set this down on so you can see them. There's the pieces for the mustache that could become his eyes. Oh, and I also noticed, I didn't do this on mine, but when you're punching, the piece that it shows the leg shape punches out this kind of pretty nice little black strip. If you wanted to keep that and use for your belt, that might be a good piece to use there. It is a little bit smaller than the belt on the jacket, so I actually cut mine a little bit bigger from a different scrap, but maybe we'll use that one this time just to show the difference. The other piece that I thought would be good for eyes are these little diamonds that get punched out by his hat. So there's a couple different shapes of the diamonds that come out. One that's a little bit bigger from the center, two that are a little bit smaller from the sides, but those would be good for eye pieces as well, I think. I'll punch another one just for the scraps because I think I want to use the larger diamond shape this time. And if you have just a little tiny dot that's a scrap from something else, maybe you'd like to use that instead. So let's attach those little diamond eyes. And then the other thing I'm doing with the black is his shoes. Missed. Just got to get those kind of even and centered with the nose. And yeah, let's attach this black piece as the belt. Another thing you might want to do with this straight piece is maybe he has a little staff or walking stick or something like that. So you could make that out of that piece. So it is a little bit longer. I'm going to trim just at the edge of where his jacket ends. So now this one also has the black belt. It's a little thinner because I use that punch piece instead of cutting out a different strip. But I think that still looks pretty nice. And maybe you don't even need the belt, especially with a paper that has a design like this that already kind of gives the impression of those lines, of the impression of the belt with the lines. Maybe you just don't even need that, but that's up to you. Okay, so now time for his shoes. And here's the one we just punched from the black. I'm just going to trim right off the bottom. And then however tall you want his boots to be. So I did the first guy with some pretty short boots. Let's give this one boots that are a little taller. Just want to make sure those look pretty straight and even. Looks like I did not cut that very straight. It's kind of at a weird diagonal. Okay, that looks a little better. And I'm not being real precise with how I'm cutting these, and I'll show you why in just a second. We're actually gonna trim them apart, and you don't have to do that, but I liked the way it looked to have his feet separate. So here he is with the taller boots now. I'll give that a second to dry and then we'll trim. You could also give him some just accents on his boots, maybe some laces or other things, maybe with a metallic pen. And while that's drying, let's choose the piece we're going to use for his hat. I would not choose probably the ones that I punch from the very top of the paper when I'm doing a strip, just because it tends to be pretty flat. And I think it looked better a little rounded. Although if you like his hat flat, you certainly could do that. No reason he can't have a flat hat. Just looking at what color options we have from the paper that has already been punched out. I think maybe I'm gonna choose that one, but we'll see. Yeah, I think I like this one this time for his hat. So I'm going to trim this part away, and not being real precise with that part of the trimming. But where we do want to be a little more precise is where we trim the hat to match up with his head. So for this one, I trimmed it kind of rounded so it has more of the round shape for his face. But if you'd rather, you can do it a little flatter. I wouldn't want to do it this flat or this long at least, because then we're covering up his eyes and nose. But I could do it pretty flat and just follow this line on the paper. Okay. So his hat will be kind of like that for this one. And now that I've got it on there, I actually don't like that together because we've got the X's and then we've got the X's. But let's just flip it over and use the blue side instead. So he will have a mostly light blue hat. And I'm gonna glue this on and then we'll do the rest of the trimming for the top and bottom of this Nutcracker. Okay, so now he has a blue hat. You could add some extra accents, maybe some fuzzy white fur or a pom-pom or something. That would be really cute on this. But I'm gonna trim his feet. Just gonna basically trim across right here. I think the bottom of that black is a good place for his boots to end. And then I'm gonna cut the little space between his feet. So we've got 2 separate boots. And I need to do a little bit of cleanup where I didn't get it exactly in the right spot. Or didn't trim it in exactly the right spot, I guess I should say. Okay, so there's his feet separated. The last thing we need to do is clean up his hat and top of his head from the kind of background piece. And I think on this one I will do it a little more flat. That one I did kind of pointy. This one I'll round it but not pointy like that one. So a little flatter. And you could make the top of his hat into all sorts of shapes. You could give him a taller, more like Buckingham Palace style hat if you wanted to. even if you're going to do a border strip with a bunch of them decorated up, you could make them have different kinds of hats as they go. So something like that might be a cute way to dress up your border a little bit. And maybe you don't even need to do every one, but you could have a couple different dressed up nutcrackers on your border that you're putting onto your page. Or just use these guys as little embellishments wherever you want on gift tags or cards. They'd be cute for Christmas. They also are cute for just other soldiers, so something like London trips or Buckingham Palace specifically. You could use this punch to do some stuff with that, because it definitely has that kind of a feel to the shape of this nutcracker. So I hope you thought that was a fun little idea. I've seen some other really cute things that people have done with the nutcracker punch, so I might link to some of my favorite other ideas from other advisors as well.